Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 188 of Born to be Wild, a wild and wild-adjacent Hearthstone podcast, where we have fun hanging out with friends, talking about the wild and wild-adjacent formats of Hearthstone, and spotlighting members of the wild community. I'm your host, Sheep. It's great to be back on this beautiful, it's kind of damp, but then it dried up, Friday evening here in the beautiful Boulder, Colorado area. I'm joined tonight by two of my favorite people, Hydralisk and SchmoopyDaddy. How's it going, Hydra?
I am doing quite well. I had not the funnest week. I'll talk about that later, but it's Friday. And we are here to talk about the game of the Hearth. So I'm stoked that the week's over and we can do that thing. SchmoopyDaddy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. It was kind of a tough week, family-wise. Schmoopy had a couple of issues in school we had to deal with, and I have some deadlines that were due at work. But you know, it's all right. We got there. It's very damp here in Orange County, New York, and very excited for my first episode, first full episode as a full co-host for the pod. Sweet.
As Sheep would say, excitement abounds.
And how?
Well, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. Let me briefly explain how this show works. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/borntobewildhs, and the video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. However you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
And before we get into the main topics of the show, I'd like to say a quick thank you to Shokunin and the other patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button on this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your podcast platform of choice. Here in April, I'm going to have to take off the Google Podcast part of that, and it makes me sad. That was my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
Yeah.
Rip.
If you're watching live on Twitch, we've got some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to the channel, which is, of course, free if you use your Amazon Prime. There are also some emotes you can use in the Born to be Wild chat that you unlock completely for free just by following. We've also got some masterful merchandise modeled by, I don't have any more alliteration, by Schmoopy Family on the screen here if you're watching the video version. The merchandise is fun and cool and can be found through a link to the shop from our main website. Finally, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. If you'd like to interact with any of us personally, you can, of course, join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends all across the world who love talking about Wild Hearthstone. Links to all of this stuff and things can be found on our website, which is, of course, borntobewildhs.com. Now, before we go into the main topic, let's also kind of catch up. Hydra, you mentioned that you had a week. Tell me a little bit about it, bud.
So, Hydralisk was in school this week, and it did not go as smoothly as I wanted it to go. So,
Did you get detention already?
No. So it was a 4-day class, and for anyone who's familiar with the program Mastercam, that's what it was for. It's so you can draw things, make 3D models, and then machine them. without having to hand type out all this code that I've been doing for the last 20 years as a machinist, hand typing code. So in my new position, I've got a computer at work that has this program and never actually used it. So I get to make all the cool things and draw cool 3D models and then get to make programs to make them using this software. So I was all prepared. I downloaded the software early. I downloaded the files we're going to use in the course, and I was really like getting stoked to start, right? And my course says that it was 9 to 4 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. So 4 days this week. And so, okay, I get up in the morning, I log in from home, and I just hop on to Outlook and Teams, and I'm doing normal work stuff from about 7 a.m. till 9 for when the course starts. And then I join the course, and so it's using this GoToMeeting app, which I haven't used before, but it's a thing that I have now. And
I'm sorry.
I log in. Not a fan, I take it.
No.
I log in, and the screen of the instructor that's sharing their screen seems to not be moving. It's sort of frozen, right? And I can't hear any audio. And so the first thing I do is I type in the chat saying, is this frozen for everybody else? Is there no audio for everybody else? And they type, we're on our hour lunch break. And I was like, oh, huh? And I said, it's 9. It says it's starting at 9. And they're like, yeah, Eastern time. And I'm on the West Coast. Yeah, right? And so that wasn't in the invitation. It wasn't in the email. I did not have any idea, because I was told this was from our local representative. By local, I guess they just mean the same country, because this was the other side of the country. So I missed the entire first half of day 1 of a 4-day course. And so instantly the anxiety like kicks in, and I'm panicking. I can see what's on the screen. They've already built a thing, right? Like, and then I don't know what to do. So I go on YouTube and I just start watching like Mastercam Basics on YouTube to like see if I can catch up to where they are in the course, right? But I've got an hour and I've missed the first half of the day. So I see some stuff. I watched it. It was completely unrelated to what we talked about when the instructor came back. And they're already doing all these things. They're already going over like basic fundamentals of the entire thing. So I am lost and not in a good place. I'm stressed out. I'm anxious, and I have no idea what's happening. So I was DMing the instructor saying, can you send me like an updated file of where you're at? Because I don't know where you're at with this project. I don't know how you've built this thing. I've got no idea. Right. And so they sent me a file. I loaded it, but that didn't mean anything because I didn't know how they made it. Right. And day 1 was a wash. Right. The afternoon, once it was over, I tried to watch more videos online, but like I said, this course is tailored to build certain things or certain projects, so it's not relating to what exactly I'm learning. So day 2, I'm like, all right, so I guess I got to get up like at 5 in the morning to start the class because time zones. And I start the day off, and the instructor is now having audio issues. Turned out to be internet issues. No. So their voice is cutting in and out, and their screen is getting all choppy. And we keep having to type in chat, hey, we can't hear you. Like, what is happening? And he says, oh, well, we've got a snowstorm here on the East Coast. And so that might be why. So the audio keeps getting worse. The video is getting choppier. And eventually the instructor just drops. And on that GoToMeeting app, it's got a notification that says if the host doesn't return, the meeting's just going to end, right? Your session will end. And it didn't have an actual timer. It just said soon, if they don't return soon. So we sit there and we just wait. Let's say it was 20 minutes. And then it drops and the call's over. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Missed the first half of day one. Now my instructor's gone. So like an hour or so later, we get an email from the provider that says, hey, we're going to find you a new instructor. The original one's internet is gone, right? It's out. So they find us a new instructor, and this person has no idea where we're at. So they start showing us things, and we're saying like, hey, we don't know this. We don't, like, you got to rewind. Like, we don't know any of this stuff you're talking about. And they decided, okay, we're going to take an early lunch. I got to call the original instructor and we got to connect. So we take a lunch like an hour and a half early, and they've got phone calls to make and figure it out. And they come back. It's already the afternoon at this point on the East Coast, not for me, but, and they come back, and then you get a couple hours of, I guess, sort of solid quality instruction, but also still I'm already so far behind because I had missed that first half of the first day. So day 3 comes along, and then they go back to the original instructor, so they switched it on us twice. And the original instructor now isn't fully caught up to date with what instructor number 2 had taught us. And the entire thing was a mess. So I had sent a message saying like, hey, at this point, can I get a redo? Like a refund? Or can I take this course another time? Because I'm so lost. We're 3 days in and I don't know what I'm doing. Right? So they'd sent out an email saying, yeah, we'll make arrangements for people to retake the course in the future. They gave some potential dates of mid to late February, which was nice. But then I've got this anxiety of I've just taken off. So I stuck it out through the 4th day. It wasn't super productive, but I stuck it out through the 4th day. But now I got to go back to work and explain to my company that I was just off for 4 days doing this course, and I still can't do the thing.
Yeah.
So I was extremely stressed out. Last night, I woke up. I fell asleep. I went to bed at like 10, but I only slept for about 4 hours, and I was up at 2 a.m. And I'm just like rehearsing in my head how I'm going to explain this to my company when I get back there. And I was awake from 2 all the way till when I went to work today. So bad week. Very, very bad week. But luckily, my boss didn't take it that horribly. So he's down with the rescheduling of the training. He's a little disappointed, but yeah, it was just pretty stress induced. I wasn't chatting on the Discords or anything like that very much because I was trying to making sure I could try to salvage something out of it.
Yeah.
I still have the manual. I've got the manual. So like on the weekend, I can read over the entire manual. I can start from like scratch by myself. But on the first page of the manual, it states, this is not intended to be a standalone manual. It goes along with your live training. So I read the first page. I'm like, man. Anyway, I tried to entertain myself a little bit with some Hearthstone. Had play some Druid quests, and I know that Sheep likes his Druid, and I just happened to see a deck because I went on HS Replay and I saw a Treant Druid deck, and I played it, and then I couldn't lose. Nice. So that was cool. I just kept winning and winning and winning, and I think I started off at like 8-0 or something like that. It balanced off a little more later to about a 77. Yeah, HS Replay says I'm at a 71% win rate. So
Low for Wild.
it balanced off. Yeah, low for Wild. But it was fun. I was like, oh, no wonder Sheep loves this. I was like, I just make all the things and make them bigger and smack them in the face. I like doing that. So I had a little bit of stress relief by poning noobs with Treant Druid. That was pretty neat. But that's my week in a nutshell, and I'm just so glad it's the weekend and I can sort of, wind down. I'll probably do some studying anyways on catching up on the things that I missed and see what I can take care of. But yeah, not very fun. But let's talk about sheep and see how sheep's week went.
Well, this is going to be a downer of an episode because it was a pretty sad week in the city of Electric Sheep too. Some reasons that we'll get into during the news. It's a pretty hard time in the Blizzard Microsoft Team 5 area. But also, one of my friends and coworkers is sick with cancer and got some news that was not so happy about that. So it's kind of been a bit of a tough week all around. Focusing a bit on Hearthstone. I coached my buddy through some fatigue druid in standard. My buddy who came back to the game with the catch-up packs. He's mostly focusing on standard right now, and it's very similar to our mill druid, but it's standard, so it's not like naturalize and Jade Idol stuff like that are not in it. And coached him from somewhere in platinum to about like D10, D5, somewhere around there. He got himself up to D3 afterwards, and he very well could be like making a legend push this month. And like he came back with the catch-up packs. He came back with this expansion. So it's a pretty quick turnaround for him.
How has he hit legend in the past, or would this be a first time thing?
So he actually hit legend before I did. He hit legend with,
that's right.
Yeah, Jade Druid back in the day, whenever that was standard. So he's gotten there before. That this won't be his inaugural legend if he does make the push, but this quick of a turnaround from just stagnant for, he got all of the packs, or so many cards from the catch-up packs, because none of them were like, he had no cards from any of those expansions. He's not played for a while. To making a legend push like what, a month or two later is just wild.
Standard,
cool.
Apparently.
And standard, that's true.
I was trying so hard not to say it.
I sheep him. No. You can't. You got to be ruthless here. You can't just let that. Think about the amount of times he's going to get us Hydra. You got to get one in every once in a while.
Rules is rules. Myself, in our format, I've been playing some aggro druid to the surprise of absolutely no one. Some Holy Wrath Paladin for a reason we'll talk about a little bit later. Partially because I really, really like that deck. And then, still been playing a little bit of hand buff as well. So it was fun, and I'm really looking forward to talking a little bit more about meta developments when we get to that point of the show. But before we get there, Schmoopy, I would like to hear a little bit about your week in and outside of this game of Hearthstone.
Sure. I mean, I kind of alluded to my week outside. It's a little bit of a tough week for Schmoopy in school. We're getting him there. He's got ADHD and again impulse control issues, and he was doing really well, and now he's doing not so well, and so we're sort of troubleshooting that. Other than that, it's a pretty normal week. I go to work. I come home from work. We were talking before the show. My house is a disaster because my daughter just trashes it. She just takes if we clean up. She wants to put everything that she plays with on the couch, and so if we we leave it to her, there's going to be nothing, but the entire couch is going to be covered with toys, except for just enough space for her to sit down, which she's not very big. So that's not leaving a lot of space. Definitely not enough for an adult. And so we're constantly fighting that battle, and that endless fight against entropy that comes with having small, drooly, sniffly children. As far as Hearthstone goes, I mean, I've played a bunch of Wild. A lot of times, I find that most of the Wild I play is actually, on my stream at night. But when I do play, and I sort of play on my own, I've been playing a lot of Odin Warrior, which is like a skipper deck. It's akin to something that we'll highlight later tonight. It's almost found its way onto the VS report a couple times, apparently. VS. TempoStorm report a couple times, but it's that nobody's really playing it. But I like it, and I have a lot of fun. But I think one of the more fun Hearthstone-related things that I did this week was for over the holidays, I was doing these like co-ops with people in my Discord. And sometimes people just didn't line up. Like I still have to reschedule with Dr. BOMD. But we finally got the final Union on a playthrough. And Union goes, well, instead of playing on your account, playing Union decks, because, usually if I play Union decks on my account, I don't win. He's like, why don't we just co-op on my account? You can spectate me, and we can co-op my decks as I'm climbing. I'm like, all right, well, where are you? He's like, I don't know. I'm in like gold 5. I'm like, what kind of bonus you have? I got like a 5x. Okay, so we're gonna play some good old down in the druthers, some good old Hearthstone. And so we go and we co-op, and unsettlingly enough, as I'm preparing for the co-op, or I should say as Union's preparing for the co-op, I play a couple games of viewer decks that I hadn't cleared yet from the night before, and Union's like, okay, it's okay. I'll be ready in like half an hour. I'm cooking. I'm like, what do you mean you're cooking? He's like, yeah, it's fine. I'll be ready. I'm like, okay. So I clear the viewer decks. I do okay with those. I'm like, all right. Now I don't actually, like, I'm not the one playing. I'm just co-oping. And so I Union hops on the VC, and I'm spectating him in, and he introduced himself, and it's very nice. The final Union, for those who aren't aware, I'm sort of parroting what Keith Numbers did, streamer from a couple years back who used to play viewer decks in Wild pretty much every night, pretty regularly, and the final Union was one of his more regular customers who would develop such famous decks as Trino Druid, which is Reno Druid before Reno Druid was good, but all the trees in it as the theme.
Yes,
good. Or famously, he tricked a bunch of idiots into playing, Dead Man Taxes Warrior, where it's like you're playing Dead Man's Hand, but you're playing like Watch Post and stuff and Weeb Lords, and it was bad. There's a lot of anti-synergy. It was horrible. But people were just like, man, I can't quite win with the deck. He's like, well, it takes a lot of practice. It didn't take any practice. He doesn't know what he was doing. But he used to play at like a fairly high level of legend in Wild back in the day. And so like now he's just sort of like goofing off. It's his goof off game, and he's in chat tonight. So I'm co-oping with him, and Union in some cases is reading the cards for the first time that he has put in his decks. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what have I signed myself up for? And so there's a lot of Schmoopy being grumpy, and shockingly enough, we won with some amazing decks, because our opponents were also playing some amazing things sometimes, but sometimes it was like some meta decks. Like my favorite game that we had together was we were playing as Reno Druid. I say in the opening hand that I see, I'm like, wow, this is a shocking amount of good cards in here, Union. He goes, I know, thank you. And then we top deck. Do you guys remember that new minion that came out with a mini set that is both Druid and Warlock, that deals damage equal to the number of mana crystals that you have?
It is a finale card. So
it is very good.
Not
it is a finale
cry.
card. It is not a battle cry. Interesting. Yes, I love that you brought up that fact that it's a battle cry, because we all made that mistake when we first saw the card, right?
Oh yeah, you could totally mess that one up.
But we first saw the card when the mini set came out, and we all had that moment of, yes, okay, right, this is finale, this is not Battle Cry, right? Union had that moment on stream at the time, and so the card comes out, he goes, oh yeah, I really want to get somebody with that. I'm like, all right, Union, all right. You know it's not Battle Cry, right? And like, you know how you can tell when you're spectating and somebody's reading a card for the first time because they just sort of cursor over it and the card gets bigger?
Yeah.
And it just kind of hangs there for a minute. I'm like, Union? He's like, what? I'm like, are you reading it for the first time? He's like, no. Pulls it up again. So I'm like, you have a brand in here, don't you? He goes, maybe. So I was lucky. It's not going to work. No, it's not. So I was lucky enough that there were enough actual good cards in there that we ended up having a sequence of events where we dealt 17 with it to face, which was pretty cool. So even though it was not how we expected, it turned out okay. And that was kind of the theme of the stream. Like when we failed in a hilarious manner. When we won, we scammed our minds out of it. And so that was to bring a lighthearted spin to the end of However Our Week section. That was a ton of fun.
Cool. You know, co-ops are the best. We used to do a lot more in the past, and it's been a while, but there's nothing as fun as like sharing those moments with somebody else. When it's just yourself, yeah, it's cool, and you can take a screenshot and to send it in Discord or whatever, but definitely experiencing those kind of fun times with another person is a good time.
It's more fun when you're like, Union, why are you playing that mech? We don't have any mechs in our deck. It just dredges. And he's like, well, it draws better minions. You could just play Gold Panner.
Keep on panning.
Schmoopy, I'm gonna be real. I forgot that was a card. Okay, and that's just sort of, and then you can't see it at home if you're listening on the podcast, but I essentially threw myself backward and shook my head, staring at the sky, because that's essentially the roller coaster of emotions that I had.
If it makes the Final Union feel any better, there was one time that sticks out in my mind where we used to do the play section at the end of the stream, and I famously screwed up Tog Druid combo. There was so many people watching, and I played the cards in the wrong order and totally messed it up, and basically like shame quit the stream.
Wiser words have never been spoken.
I was like, oh my god, I just did that, and there was a lot of people watching, and I messed it up so hard. Yeah, I was very embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, something else a lot of people have to be embarrassed about.
Welcome to the news. The news is actually pretty bad.
So the news is pretty bad this week. On, when was this, Thursday? Gosh, this was only yesterday, wasn't it? Wow. The news broke that Microsoft has now laid off 1,900 people in its gaming division, including Activision Blizzard, just 3 months after closing its $69 billion acquisition. Story coming shortly, first reported by The Verge. Blizzard boss Mike Ybarra is also out. And in other Blizzard news, Alan Adam, chief design officer and company's founder, is leaving the company. And that survival game that many of the former Hearthstone devs got promoted to, that has been in development for 6+ years, is canceled. And what they don't say here is that pretty much that entire team got laid off as well. So a lot of people who, we interacted with, be it in a, friendly way, some people in a more adversarial way, but always because we want the game to be the best it can be. a lot of people lost their jobs. And those who didn't lose their jobs have kind of been, for obvious reasons, struggling with so many of their friends and coworkers losing their jobs and how to navigate this and just feeling all of these like human emotions. So I know Matt London, who we had on our dev interview here, he is one of those impacted by these layoffs. And it's just been really hard to see everyone going through this and to wonder kind of like how the whole team is taking this. I'm gonna turn it over to one of y'all for a little bit.
What I did appreciate, I guess, was the openness from the devs that both were let go and weren't let go. I noticed that obviously not afraid to say anything about what's happening. And as well, the devs that weren't let go were showing their sympathies, right? They weren't afraid to say, this is crappy, right? Like not afraid to, I guess, speak out against what had happened, even though obviously there's a danger of them losing their jobs. That at this point, you don't know if this is round 1 of 2 or whatever, right? But it seemed that they really sympathized with their friends. I saw a lot of really nice comments saying like, hey, all these members on these teams are just stellar people. They've done great jobs developing these games, and I wish them like the best of luck, stuff like that. So it was nice to see that support from the people that were still there and not just radio silence from them. Like they were too afraid to say something. So I thought that at least was something nice out of this really unfortunate situation. SchmoopyDaddy?
Sure. When these companies, acquisitions happen, whether rightly or wrongly, this happens. They do an internal review. They look for redundancies, where they exist or not, or in somebody's mind they are on a spreadsheet. And then they just, they start hacking. And then, we've lost so many people. I'm interested to see if there's like a Microsoft person that is going to just sort of slide into the roles here, or if, Hearthstone's just going to be sort of left kind of short-handed in some spots. Like, is it not getting any more support, or is it on its own? Is it just sort of limping around, and that's really the scary part for me. I mean, I think I was most anxious to see if Hat kept his job, because, people kept asking him on Discords, he's so in the community, and they're like, Hat, do you know if you're safe? And he's like, I don't know. Has he even been there a year yet? I don't even think he's even been there a year yet.
It's still pretty fresh.
Doing a fantastic job reaching out, as a liaison between what Blizzard's doing and the community, as you knew he would. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a bean counter can't say, well, is his position, completely necessary? Do we really need to talk to the community the way that we are? So, I mean, that's what I was most anxious about, because he's been a treasure to the community, and I didn't want to see him leave. And I do want to say that I am one of those people that has been cranky with Matt London in the past. I still am not 100% on board with how, Hearthstone was run in his stead. I didn't want him to lose his job.
Right.
Like I got, just because I get cranky about a children's card game does not mean that you want to see somebody lose their jobs, especially because you don't know, who has dependents, who doesn't. It's a little bit better when it's just them on their own, because there's, for whatever reason, it's like, well, at least I can take care of myself. I imagine, me losing my job where I've got, 2 kids and a wife and a mortgage, and it's just like, oh no, like that's scary and spooky. Kind of like what happened to Nate. He was open about it on the show. It's like that's the worst. Where it's just like, well, you have other people that are depending on you, and now, the bottom's falling out. And so, I kind of know business is business. My mom worked for IBM for a long time, so like this doesn't necessarily come as a shock to me. And I don't necessarily I wasn't appalled because it was just like, this is just, this is what happens. This is the cycle. But it was tragic. And, if they're already dialing back stuff like duels because they're overworked, stay tuned. Because again, hopefully it's redundancies and it's actual redundancies where there's going to be people filling in. But because that's what I would say for Hearthstone. The survival game itself is kind of wild because I've seen some people post where it's just people were promoted to this thing. This was people moved up to that game. And it's almost
people
like
relocated from other parts of the country to work on these games and then lost their jobs too.
It's almost like did they just see a bunch of fat salary? Like this is a conspiracy theory, obviously. But did they just see a bunch of fat salaries on a project that, if you read some articles, was a little bit it was a fun game, but as far as its viability, people were execs were having questions about it. Did they see a bunch of fat salaries on like a not sure thing, and we're just like easy? It's wild. You could do a whole lot.
Possible.
Like I was talking to an NHL fan about it. It's like you could probably do a whole podcast episode on just that thing that happens alone. But like from that, we saw so many names. Atez was one of the. He was Mr. Duels. He was Mr. Balanced Duels, and dude never missed. Like he kind of kept it Duels being what Duels was. Like he was let go because he was part of that project. Matt London was let go because he was part of that project. So like you were saying, Sheep, like names that we recognize, and it's sad that we had to say bye to them.
Yeah. One quick follow up. Later on yesterday, Hat did announce that he still works for Blizzard. A lot of really good people don't anymore and deserved better. If you see their posts looking for work, please help amplify them. Trust me, you want these people on your team. And absolutely the case. Just going to kind of read a few of these because I think that they are important. Matt London said, no sword for me. I've been let go from Blizzard along with many, many others of the survival team. I will be actively looking for new opportunities for myself and my teammates, so please let me know. Stay loving, friends. Peace sign. So Eights said, after nearly 9 years, I was impacted with the cancellation of our project. I'm now looking for work. It has been an honor making content for you all, and I wish you could have seen the stuff I was cooking.
I do wish we could see that stuff. That's really sad that it was a 6-year project for this survival game, right? And it's not going to see the light of day whatsoever. So I was quite looking forward to it, but unfortunately all the great work these people are doing won't see that light of day.
Cynthia Park said, hi friends, I was laid off today. Many hugs to everyone else impacted. It was a wonderful time, and I feel so grateful and lucky to have met so many amazing people. If you have any leads on PR/comms jobs, please don't hesitate to reach out. Ilana said, my role at Activision Blizzard is among those impacted. I'm still here as EU process takes a while. Happy to consider any community and brand/project management roles. Please be kind to the Hearthstone team. It's been rough for everyone. Stay awesome, folks. This is not an individual person, but this is kind of another headline. This one is about the survival game. Blizzard today canceled survival game Odyssey and laid off most of the team. It was in development for more than 6 years, and by all accounts, very fun, but was still years away from release. Why? Apparently because of Synapse, the engine behind the game. And then there's a whole story about it, but I truthfully have to kind of think that that's a little bit of a scapegoat more than an actual reason.
Yeah, I haven't not read through that article yet, so I'm not too sure.
I meant to. It was through Forbes, so I hadn't checked it out yet.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of really talented people, and like Hat said in his post, if you see posts looking for work, amplify them, because you want these people on your team. I mean, there's a reason why these people worked for Blizzard. I mean, Blizzard is one of the top places you can work in game development. So if anyone is looking for folks who happens to be listening here, the names we just mentioned are people actively searching. So, what small platform we have, I just definitely want to use that to kind of amplify their calls as well, because every single one of these people is amazing at what they do.
And 1,900 is a huge number. The ones we highlighted is a drop in the bucket, right? Like, so many people.
That was across the whole gaming division, right? Like, so that was some Blizzard, some Xbox. Like, there was a...
Yeah, that was across all of Microsoft gaming.
I wish I could say it's surprising, but it's kind of not, because when these acquisitions happen, like, I thought that we already went through a round of them for Hearthstone, where, remember, we had that like sort of that sprinkle of people that were let go before in December. Mm-hmm. Was it December? Like right before Christmas. And I thought, I was like, oh, well, maybe that's it. It was not. And so that's what it is.
Very much just the tip of the iceberg. So, not to be a completely downer episode, I think we're going to transition out of the news, which this week's been tough, y'all. This week's been real tough, and I'm glad that we're giving it the spotlight it deserves. But first and foremost, this is a Hearthstone podcast, and there's been some, Hearthstone goings on that, maybe we can raise our spirits a little bit by focusing on the wild meta?
Question mark.
There was a new TempoStorm Wild meta snapshot that, rolled out, what was it, on the 23rd? So that would have been Tuesday of this past week. We've got, I'll briefly, go down the tier 1. We've got Even Shaman, Reno Shaman, and Even Warrior. Tier 2, we've got Aggro Priest, Fatigue Questline Warlock, Mine Rogue, Reno Druid, Mill Druid, Miracle Rogue, Questline Demon Hunter, Holy Wrath Paladin, Dragon Druid, Kingsbane Rogue, and Pirate Rogue. And in tier 3, we've got Big Shaman, Reno Quest Mage, Giants Questline Warlock, Thief Rogue, Svalna Priest, Gauntlet Warrior, Alex Rogue, Beast Hunter, Reno Paladin, Reno Priest, and even Unholy Death Knight, a personal favorite of mine. So I was thinking we could talk a little bit about the wild meta, in particular, highlight some of the decks that we've been playing from this particular list. And SchmoopyDaddy, I know you've been playing one that is particularly engaging. Kick it over to you either for going straight into the deck spotlight, or if you want to talk a little bit about the meta and report before we spotlight those, and then of course go into a bigger meta discussion at the end.
No, let's do the deck spotlights first. This is kind of neatly transitioning to this, especially since I really like this deck.
Yeah.
This is not my warrior deck of choice, but I think it's a spicy inclusion on the meta report. The fact that it got on the meta report at all, the fact that Bladed Gauntlet got on the TempoStorm meta report at all should kind of raise some eyebrows. But this is a very effective control / combo deck. The idea behind the deck is Bladed Gauntlet. If you're unaware, is which you should be because it's Bladed Gauntlet, is a 2-mana, 0 attack, 2 durability weapon that reads the attack of this weapon, very roughly, the attack of this weapon is equal to your armor. So if you've got 60 armor, it's got 60 attack. But wait, caveat to that is it can't attack heroes. So you cannot go face with it, thank God. So what can you do instead? Well, somebody looked at Warsaw Commander and scratched their chin. And then they looked at Bloodsail Raider, which you might know as a, Pirate River Croc. It's a 2-mana 2/3, but it reads the text, gain attack equal to the attack of your weapon. So additional attack equal to the attack of your weapon. So if you've got a 60 attack weapon and it's got 2 attack, now it's got 62 attack. What's neat is there's an interaction where if you play Warsong Commander first, and then you play the Bloodsail Raider, the Bloodsail Raider still registers as being 3 attack or less. It's Warsong's 3 attack or less, right? I believe? Okay. So it still registers the Bloodsail Raider as being 3 attack or less. Then the Bloodsail Raider's Battle Cry kicks in, and it gains a bunch of attack. So it gets charge, then it gains attack, and you go face with that sucker. So this whole deck is basically trying to make a bunch of armor, get Bladed Gauntlet up, make a little charger, go face with the charger. And the rest of the deck is kind of flexible from there. Now, the way that you typically are gaining the armor is you're doing Risky Skipper nonsense. So Risky Skimmer, Armorsmith. Shout out to Rockstar, which is a fairly new card. Festival of Legends? Festival of Legends is when it came out. Every time you gain armor, gain an additional 2 armor. Since the way Armorsmith is sort of calculating things is every time a minion's getting damaged, you're gaining 1 armor. Well, now with Rockstar up, you're gaining 3 armor. So it scales out of control pretty quickly, especially if you start getting multiple Armorsmiths up, or you have your Eternium Rovers, and they're gaining armor and also getting damage. And so it gets a little bit goofy. This isn't my preferred warrior deck. However, what I like about this deck and its advantage is for a combo deck, it has resiliency in its pieces. If you lose the War Song, you've got an ETC to get a charge. If you lose the Bloodsail Raider from hand, you can get one from your ETC. You can throw your skippers away whenever you want to throw your skippers away, whether you got to clear, whether you got to do what. And the rest of the deck is basically armor game and removal. So you're still doing Buckler, Shield Shatter. You're still keeping aggro decks off the board. And you're just sort of turtling. And you're turtling and turtling until you punch your opponent in the face. And this can get lethal. I've seen it as early as like turn 5 or 6. I think that's not unreasonable. I've seen it. I've seen it where it's like, okay, opponent does their gain a bunch of armor the turn before, then they equip their Bladed Gauntlet. They swing with their Bladed Gauntlet once into one of my threats. Now I'm down a threat. They still have enough armor to take me out with the Bloodsail Raider. They combo me the next turn. So like you don't have to do everything at once. You can kind of just sort of meter it out piece by piece, feel out the matchup, and then boom, it's over. So I think this deck is really cool. There's no Odin in here. So like that's it. The combo is how you're going to win. But like you've got some cute stuff. You've got Cutting Class because you've got a giant Bladed Gauntlet. Just draw 2 for free. Cool. Pot of greet it. So yeah.
I like that you can also, like if they have a taunt up, since the Bloodsail Raider is the thing charging, as long as you have like multiple charges on your weapon, you could remove the taunt with your face and then go face with the Bloodsail Raider, right?
100%. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't gain charge dictate. It's not like deckhand, right? So like it can go face whenever it wants to go face.
Yeah, so that's super cool.
Yeah, this list has popped up several times, mostly Chinese players, and they play it like a couple people play it fairly regularly, up the ladder. I don't think this is necessarily the perfect 30. This has like 2 from the depths for it, obviously for like cheaper combo pieces and like you're dredging one of the discounted pieces and that can speed up your combo. But if you were uncomfortable and you wanted to add new cards, like there's one Aftershocks in here. If you wanted to add a second, you could. You wanted to add some like Dry Whisker Armorers, you could. Like there's a little bit of flexibility in this list too. I think this is probably the most repeated list because some prominent Chinese player plays it. But it's cool. It's decent. It's good.
And it's different.
Right? It's different. It's spicy. Sheep, what did you end up picking?
Yeah, so the one that I brought is Holy Wrath Paladin. So we've kind of alluded to Holy Wrath Paladin on and off, randomly throughout the show, but this feels like, if not the perfect 30, like close. So in the early game, you've got some 1-drops and Righteous Protectors. You've got a whole lot of 2 cost or less minions because you also run Call to Arms. So you can get some chip damage in face. Honestly, aside from the Holy Wrath combo, which of course is the Order in the Court, which no longer draws a card, into Holy Wrath itself, which then has Shirvallah the Tiger to do 25 damage face. We also run the Thakal, High Priest Thakal, and Molten Giant combo because if you happen to draw your Shirvallah the Tiger, you want to be able to have some redundancy in those big minions. So you not only have the Molten Giant for that thing, but you've also got the Thakal. So if you draw the Molten Giants, then cool, you've developed some 8/8s just peppered throughout. I mentioned that this has got, quite a few 2-drops or less. Honestly, aside from that combo, it feels a little bit like just an aggro paladin, which I really like. So of course we've got Crab Rider, we've got Gold Panner to keep on panning, Hi-Ho Silverwing to draw our holy spells, which are of course Dep Aura to clear off and heal up against a particularly even shaman. We've got Blade Master Samuro to combo with that. We've also got Crusader Aura because we make big wide boards and, things like
very important
Crab Rider to, take advantage of that. And then, of course, the other holy spell is Holy Wrath itself. We've also got like a Showdown and Prismatic Beam combo to clear off an even shaman board, or, if you're playing against like some giants, if you have an aura on board, you can Showdown into Prismatic Beam and then, kill off the weakened giants. If it's Dep Aura, then you're like pretty much healing to full while dealing with your opponent's board, which is super clutch. Of course, we've got Web Lord as well to kind of like keep our opponents from playing their battle cries with powerful effects. The only battle cry we've got is High Priest the Call. And then, of course, we've also got Blood Matriarch Liadrin. So Liadrin, you play Liadrin, you play your gold panner. He gets the Divine Shield. He gets Rush. If you've got Dep Aura, be sure not to play him on the left because he will not get the Rush from that thing. Pro strat. But if you have Crusader Aura, then with that Rush, then he gains the +2/+1 while he's attacking. So it's, of course, all of these things get pulled from Call to Arms. The only minions that don't are the ones we want to keep in the deck, and High Priest the Call and Blade Master Samuro, which we want the battle cry or the essentially Reno effect from the Dep Aura plus Blade Master Samuro. So we want to time that specifically rather than just pulling it from Call to Arms anyway. So it's got a really great early game, a really great mid game, and then of course a 20 or 25 burst from hand. I queued into Labore the other day playing this, and it was so funny. He played Reno, the new hero, cleared my board, did all that. I was playing aggressive the whole time. And then afterwards, he told me, he was like, my thought was, you can't have that much burst damage. And then I order in the court and Holy Wrath for 25 and just dealt the rest of it there. Wow. So it's a really powerful deck. It's really versatile because you can just go from aggro to that final punch so cleanly and have so much game against fellow aggro or those more control style decks to where you can just finish off the game. So I really, really like Holy Wrath Paladin. And I think especially into Even Shaman right now, it's just poised so well into that deck. So it's definitely, if you haven't picked up Holy Wrath Paladin yet, I highly recommend it because it's on TempoStorm. It's rated a tier 2, 11th overall. And I can see that, tier 1 typically isn't my jam. Tier 3 tends to be, but tier 2 is when you get that mix of like really powerful, but not meta tyrant. That is also a really fun place to be in.
No one's playing this right now. I have not. This was like flavor of the month when the new cards came out. I have not seen anybody really playing Holy Wrath right now. So like you kind of also have that advantage of like people aren't necessarily expecting it. You'll know they are if like they're trading into you really hard and they're just like, no minion must stick. But yeah, no, I don't see anybody playing this right now. Sheep, I don't. You've probably played as much or more Wild than me. I don't know if you've seen it that much.
I've run into it a handful of times, but
once or twice,
not a ton. Yeah.
It used to be much more ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as soon as you said the call Molten Giants, I was sold.
Yes.
an old.
It's so
favorite.
rare when that hand happens, but it feels so good.
I used to play like an old aggro dude paladin. I think that was posted by Jack, if I remember correctly. That he said, "Hey, no one's playing this. You should play this deck." And I mulliganed incorrectly on purpose because I wanted to pull it off. Right? Like I've got a good hand that I can play on curve. I'm like, no, I need it all. And it was quite surprising how many times it actually worked, even though I should not have done that. But it's like if I had one of the 3 pieces for like 2 Molten Giants and at the call, I was like, full mull. I want the whole package deal. Not recommended, by the way. And then I think it was one of the times one of my very first full golden decks that I was like, I gotta have the whole thing. Because I think one of my Molten Giants was gold and the other one wasn't. Something like that. So I'm like, oh man.
I noticed Sheep's is gold.
Oh yeah.
I noticed that as well.
Only like just a little. It's a little bright to look at.
Well, a little diamond, a little gold.
The very first deck that I ever took to Legend was Shirvala OTK Paladin in Standard back in the day.
Sure. Yeah.
It also ran the Uther combo. So, we didn't run Molten Giants, but we ran Baleful Bankers and stuff like that so that we could shuffle in the 4 horsemen. But it also worked for Shirvala the Tiger. So it was one of those kind of versatile things there. Just, depended on which way you were going. So I already had a lot of this in gold because since that was my first Legend deck, I had to bling it out. Rules are rules. It's the first one.
I remember watching an event. It was like an old. I think it was Masters Tour. It was like an old event out of California, and there was a Chinese player. They were letting a couple of them compete, and this particular person beat out a room of like, I'm not kidding, like 1,000 people or something like that, in like just one long sit down. Just like fought their way to the top of the pyramid, and their specialty was that deck sheep, and so like watching them pilot it was fascinating because you were like, wait, how'd their deck get empty? Wait, how are they playing their wait. They set this whole thing up, and you could see like just the draw engine, and that was a cool deck. I remember that deck.
One of the few times I ever got like official Hearthstone coaching was from Papa Jason on that deck before taking it in. So that was that was my like, okay, I really like this deck. It's really fun. How do I do it? It was a blast.
Cool.
And this is also the deck that I recommended to Tito whenever he made his legend run. This, not the one we're talking about, but the Holy Wrath Paladin that
Last
we've been
week.
spotlighting here. Yeah. This exact one that we've got on the screen, the Molten Giant, Prismatic Beam, etc. This is the one that Tito took to Legend, and
Nice.
it's fantastic. I cannot recommend this enough, and have two close personal friends. Case in point.
There you go. Are we ready for meta?
We are ready for meta. Take it away, Mr. Daddy.
Let me start by saying, like, so the notes are basically written by. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph because I think that's. You can read it. I encourage you to read it on the TempoStorm report because NHL Fan does a good job laying it out, and like
Absolutely.
he's friend of the show. And so it's basically saying that there's a lot of variety in the meta right now. Even after the mini set, I thought it would actually decrease, and it seems to have held relatively stable. Maybe there's less stuff is competitively viable, and there's probably some stuff in Tier 3 that belongs in possibly Tier 4. But like, there's a huge number of decks to play. It's not a meta where it's like, do you guys remember Alterac, where there were parts where it was like, okay, you've got Pirate Warrior, End of Stormwind. You've got Pirate Warrior, you've got even Warlock, or you've got Questline Hunter, and then you've got Tier 3. Like, it's not like we don't have a lot of variety in the wild meta right now. As a case in point, I wouldn't have, thought, oh, yeah, Holy Wrath Paladin, sure. I mean, Gauntlet Warrior. Like, there's things that you can play right now that you can climb
There's
with.
25 decks on the tier list. So,
But, like, the public is fatigued by the excess of Even Shaman, which is a Tier 1 deck. Like, it's not a bad deck. It's just we see bots play it badly, and then we think, oh, crap deck. But no, it's very strong right now. But the point that NHL Fan brought up is this mini set really broke some competitive things as well. Particularly in this case, what he brought up was Mind Rogue, and how Mind Rogue could basically piece together an infinite damage combo that literally breaks the client as soon as turn 5. That is fixed, by the way. Sort of. But the problem was like the team was evaluating this, and they were kind of like, is this really worth nerfing? Because as NHL Fan kind of outlines, the power level of Wild is continuing to ratchet up. And the synergies are starting to get more and more hyper-synergized. And I'll read the last paragraph of what he wrote.
Yeah.
All right. This begs the question, does this power level lead to a fun format? Do players enjoy facing decks as explosive and resilient as Even Shaman? Should Questline Fatigue Warlock be able to weaponize Fatigue as quickly as it does to win games? Are Reno, Lone Ranger, and Zephyrus the Great fair cards in Reno decks? The format has become amalgamations of the most absurd strategies, leading many prominent content creators within Wild to abandon the format. Most of these creators have cited the format's power level and interactions, leading to games being dictated without much player agency. Cards like Floop's Glorious Gloop and Ice Block can lead to gameplay that leaves the opponent feeling helpless and frustrated. The format is unabashedly become defined by these gameplay sequences. Is this what the player base really wants out of Wild? And I think that's a fair question. And I think a fair comparison to other card games that people always make is Wild's like Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Oh yeah, Wild's like Yu-Gi-Oh. So I did a little research because I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh. Hydra, did you ever play Yu-Gi-Oh?
never once, no.
Sheep, did you ever play Yu-Gi-Oh?
I did not, but I am very familiar with Exodia and Pot of Greed.
I know that Konami is the creators of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's about my extent of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Perfect. So then I can give you a little lesson on what I've heard. And like this is kind of like this is like class time for me, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh! There are first turn OTKs in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but Konami tends to make them very memey, and if they are too consistent, they nerf them. So you can have first turn OTKs where a person who goes first wins, but it's rare and it's tough for it to happen. What you have in Yu-Gi-Oh is you have like creature cards and then you have trap cards. So typically the way that Zevris and oh my gosh, what's his name? Is it super based, super bad? Somebody in my Discord. I'm gonna feel bad. I'll look it up later. We're kind of coaching me up on, okay, well, here's your typical Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay. So like, let's say I'm going first. I'm playing against Sheep. I'm gonna start basically dumping my creatures and creating a board. Sheep can counteract that with what are called trap cards, where during my turn he's interacting with my actions with these trap cards, and he's deciding whether or not he's going to do so.
You've activated my trap card. I've heard people say that. So yeah, it makes sense.
I haven't. My extent of Yu-Gi-Oh is watching Save File. If you've never seen Save File play Arena, I highly suggest it. He's a very entertaining streamer, and he does like anime scenes. He's never seen Yu-Gi-Oh, but he acts out Yu-Gi-Oh. It's great. Go ahead, Hydra.
Would it be fair to say that a trap card would be somewhat similar to a secret in Hearthstone?
It's closer to more, I would feel like, an instant in Magic the Gathering. It's almost like, imagine so we are playing correspondence chess when we're playing Hearthstone, right? So like we do an action and then we have to leave it. Yep. So like, secrets are about as close as what we get to that in Hearthstone, right? Specifically like counterspell or objection.
Right.
So there are 9 to 12 hand trap cards in a typical Yu-Gi-Oh deck, which means that on average in your starting hand you have like 1 to 1.5. So if you think about it, Sheep is playing cards, and I can interact with his actions by my choosing 1 to 2 times on average. Sometimes more, but typically 1 to 2. His turn ends, then it's my turn to either try to wipe the board with my creatures, build my own board, and then he's interacting with me with his trap cards. So Yu-Gi-Oh games are short and brutal. They're usually done by turn 3. But I asked, Zevris, I asked her, I was like, all right, Chloe, which game do you feel like you have more agency, more control? Playing Wild or playing Yu-Gi-Oh? And she said, oh, hands down, Yu-Gi-Oh. There's more skill expression. I'm picking and choosing when I'm playing my trap cards. I get to interact with my opponent on their turns. And that's it's interesting to me because like Wild goes on more turns, but there can be fewer actions by a player during those turns, right? Like I get it. I'm going to use a nice word. I get miffed at my chat sometimes playing Yu-Gi-Oh decks because they give me something and I'm like, I'm going to die on turn 4 to an even shaman, right? Like, I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you made 39 legendary Reno Druid. This is amazing.
It's a really good thing you don't care about your overall win rate in the game.
I could care less. I'm perfect for it, right? I'm like, you realize I'm passing 3 turns because I can't play what I want to play. I can't do anything, and then I die. You understand this is going to happen. What do you mean? And sometimes they are legitimately clueless, and sometimes I'm getting trolled. But that's like we could have a short game in Hearthstone too, but it's fewer actions per player, and it's less interacting with the player. And I think somebody like Corvette is starting to get like it's like sometimes it's like who high rolls harder, and now that's attractive because I'm not very good. Like sure, yeah, I'll take your high roll versus my high roll. Let's take a coin flip, baby. But I could see where, you have somebody like Raffle is like, I could go back to doing Wild, or I could do Slate Aspire. That's doing pretty well. Or you have Meowth who's like, I could play Wild, or like, I could not for my sanity and not play against a billion bots. Or you have Corbett who's like, I could play Wild, or I could leave it on Bronze Chicken for a full year and I could play Standard if I'm feeling like playing Standard, or I could just not. And so I think you have a lot of people who are starting to feel like, well, the bot decks are good. And so that's already taking away agency. And the really strong effects are good too, and that's taking away agency. So, I think that's an interesting discussion to have. And Hydra, I'm actually interested to hear from you, specifically because you haven't played as much as Sheep or I. So you are almost in this unique position where you're having like the common man experience, which I think is very valuable for our podcast, because sometimes we are the hyper engaged and we are not the common man, right? Like we're not always like 9-to-5ers and then go home, play a couple games, and then, well, I should really go to sleep because I'm exhausted from today. So has your ladder experience changed at all since the mini set? Like, have you noticed different decks? Is it more the same? Like, you know, even if it's just been a handful of games, like how has your experience been?
Well, one thing that definitely hasn't gone away is seeing the even shaman, obviously. So it's been there for so long at this point, and I just feel like it's going to be a staple for a really long time unless Blizzard decides to do something about it, and it's possible. Like Pirate Warrior was a staple for how long, right? And it doesn't exist. So it's definitely possible for even Shaman to go away. One thing like I did notice was with the new, let me try to remember the name of the card, the Mildruid card.
Pendant of Earth?
Yes, Pendant of
one?
Earth. I started seeing that, obviously, because it was a bit of a new hotness. And I already, ever since the incarnation of Mildex, it's not a pleasant play experience for the person playing against it, right?
No. Yeah.
It never has been. I wanted to play that card, and you destroyed it. Like, I put that card in my deck for a reason, and you're interacting with my deck before I get to interact with it. So for me, decks like the mill decks have always been a bummer. I have played them very little, in all honesty. I think back in the day I learned some old school mill druid, but my ladder experience probably isn't as negative as like somebody, especially someone that streams, right? So I know you've gotten into it a lot more, SchmoopyDaddy, or someone who relies on it like Corbett or Raffle. So when you're versing all these bots day after day, or these decks that are so overpowered, and if you draw your 3-card combo, you just win off the gate, and if the other person draws it, they win, right? Like that, if I was doing that for a living, it would be miserable, in my opinion. But I am somebody who, I don't hit Legend every single month. I usually do 1 month on, 1 month off. And I enjoy that. And maybe I have, because of that, it doesn't make me as, miserable as it could for, say, either of you or someone who does it for a living, which would be even a lot more, right? So it doesn't get to me unless someone's playing 6 ice blocks. Then it
yeah.
That's something that has been driving me crazy since we had like Quest Mage in general, because they would just play the ice block until that they could combo off, right?
Ashen Elemental Enjoyer in chat? Is there an Ashen Elemental Enjoyer in chat?
Yeah, so as I said, I don't think my experience is as negative as other people's. Sometimes when I just really want to climb high and I come into a bot that's playing horrible, I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Right? Because like my goal will be like to climb, right? Yeah. That's in a nutshell. I'm not as affected as somebody who plays the game a lot more.
So I think a lot more people have your experience than mine or Sheep's experience. Though I will say this month, to kind of troll my chat, if you remember last week I said I dumpstered all the way down to Bronze 5 on purpose because I gave them a competition of, listen, I'm tired of you giving me crap decks that lose to even Shaman. Make me a crap deck that can lose to a human but beat the Innkeeper. And so that was a fun stream because I got to experience what the low MMRs feel like. And that experience is very, 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 very different than where I am now. I'm at around like 5,000 legend, which is kind of, if you imagine the Hearthstone pyramid, there's like diamond 5, that's like a layer. And then there's like diamond 3 to diamond 1, that's a layer. And then there's a layer of even shaman bots. I'm up toward the top of the layer of even shaman bots, and there are another 5,000 mostly humans playing above me. And then there's like rank 300, and things get a little bit more serious. And then there's another breakpoint beyond that I usually don't reach. Things get a little bit more serious. Top 100, top 50, what have you. And I don't have to deal with Mine Rogue that currently has a little bit of a bugged list and is currently more effective than it should be. I mean, I triggered a Goblin Bomb on stream 24 times using and not swinging my weapon. And just 86 to dude. And so
I watched that one.
That was bizarre. Apparently EU is just everybody's playing Mine, like everybody's playing Mine Rogue. And so my experience isn't that bad either, because you know what? I'm after my long-term exposure to Wild, my brain's pretty smooth and a little bit hollow in some places. Like, I like repetitive experiences. I find them reassuring. So like, I'll just play my Odin warrior into like a constant army of even shamans, just like, let me just play a 90% win, like a 90%, 80% matchup over and over again and get my dopamine rush when I Odin them in the face with like a ton of attack. So like, I make my own fun. I don't really mind. And if I really hate it, I dumpster down far enough where I can play what I want. But
you reminded me of the old rank 5 hell that we used to have, right? Where everything was always, when you're trying to climb, when it was based not on an MMR system, but solely on what your rank was.
Right.
You were guaranteed to have, you're going to verse one of 3 decks, basically. The top tier 3 decks is how it was. And then when you hit the rank 5 hell, which was very hard to climb out of, that's where, like you're saying,
started memeing. That was it. Yeah,
because like if you know what your matches are going to be, you can be prepared for your matches. But when you hit that point, it could be miserable because it's hard to climb out because you don't know what you're going to get. So no, like that the repetitive action that you're talking about it makes it way easier, in your climb.
I rely on it every month. Post D5, day 1, I know exactly what I'm seeing. I'm literally going to be seeing 9 out of 10 are going to be even shaman bots. And so why not just play a deck that beats even shaman, get easy day 1 legend, easy clap. Like, okay, it might take some expression of skill to get up there, and then it might take some expression of skill to pilot that deck to get there, but some of these have been some of my easiest climbs that I've ever had. Once you get to that spot, and once you're like, again, I've been playing Control Paladin, but Sheep's enjoyed that. Sheep played Handbuff Paladin
all the way on day 1 this go round. Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, as far as just like it like there's a benefit if you can capitalize on the repetitiveness, but like it is a little mind numbing.
But if you're watching Netflix or something, like that was my favorite thing to do. And I fully admitted it on this show that I hit legend with Big Priest multiple times, right? Because it was something that I could do and I could watch movies, right? Like I know a deck that so many people hate, but if I want to make that climb and I want to enjoy some Netflix or a movie on the side, that's so perfect for me. And I get less frustrated too when I lose because I'm just into the show I'm watching.
Yeah. Honestly, that's why I really like playing even Death Knight, right? Because it has so much anti-aggro with so much aggro itself, especially now with the plagues, because we've got the 3 mana deal 4 mana, deal 3 damage to everything that your opponent's got. Like, destroy a plague. Like, it's great. So you just play so many of these like anti-aggro tools that also create your own board. Whenever I wade into a sea of even shaman, I love playing me some even Death Knight.
I have played hundreds of games with plagues.
Yeah.
Because I I love that new mechanic, and it was something a little different than what we were doing before, and it's just fun for me. I love that a lot.
And kind of further to Schmoopy's point too, is that if you're having a bit of a homogenized experience in what you're playing against, part of that can be advantageous for you to know what you can play. You know, things that Dumpster, even Shaman. I talked about even DK myself. I did it, and he and his wife both finished their legend climbs this month with Control Paladin. Right? Like, got this deck super slow, but guess what? Really fun. Dumpster's even Shaman.
And there's a lot of them. It's number 1 right now on the tier list again. So
to kind of circle back around a little bit to I think the thesis of what was posted here, and that is, of course, the begs the question, does this power level lead to a fun format? Do players enjoy facing decks as explosive and resilient as even Shaman? I think we've kind of identified that if it's as homogenized as even Shaman, that I feel like that's targetable. But Reno Shaman is also a thing. You know, Marty's point is valid there. However much we can target even Shaman in particular. Should questline fatigue Warlock be able to weaponize fatigue as quickly as it does to win games? Are Reno Lone Ranger and Zephyrus the Great fair cards in Reno decks? So this power level being turned up to 11 in a way that Schmoopy is asserting is lowering player agency. Is that something that we are enjoying? And is that something that is going to, while some folks are bouncing from the format, is that something that's going to lead to that we think is going to lead to a consistently successful format going forward? What do y'all think?
So when they're playing, so aggro is getting more powerful all the time, right? And so in the beginning, when Zephyrs was first a card, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but you got to remember it's the 1 in 30 chance they're actually gonna get it. It feels bad when they get it and they clear your board or something, right? Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, cards like that or Reno that come later in the game, like aggro decks can win on turns 3, 4, like that kind of stuff. And quite often they're not going to get to those things. So I think that those survival tools, in all honesty, are completely fine. It's just there's a lot of times that you just remember when you got burned. So I'm okay with it, in all honesty.
I think it's just different. And so from my perspective, I'm surprised we hadn't seen more people leave sooner with the China server closing and my predicted influx of Chinese players that are going to want to keep playing the game and are going to play on our servers, and all of a sudden things get more competitive. And because, especially NA, all the Western servers, you get towards the top, you can play the same people over and over again, and you get a familiarity. And if that familiarity isn't there, and you don't have that relationship with the person, and you don't know who it is, and you can't I know what Discords they hang out in, and it becomes a little bit alienating, and it can be a little bit of a different experience. With the power level also ratcheting up, I think it's going to get more and more miserable to be a competitive player unless this is your jam. Card games change. They just do. And so you can either choose to change with the game and keep playing it, if that's something you enjoy, or you take your ball and you go home. And I think, unfortunately, we're kind of seeing a sea change with a lot of streamers that are kind of prominent ones that are taking their ball and they're going home for now. And will they come back? I mean, metas change. There's shifts. it can shift back the other way. I think we've seen it shift back the other way at times. I think Renathal unironically did that.
Yeah.
As grumpy as I was about it, I think looking back on it, I was wrong. Renathal was good. I think reverting Renathal is a good thing. I'll go on record in saying that because I think it helps it be a handbrake on the format. I don't think Reno Lone Ranger is a good thing, but like I think Reno Lone Ranger is just so obviously busted above like two years ahead of its time. Like it doesn't. That's beyond things. But anyway, I'm just saying. Like I think I'm usually pro slowing down the format if it's something that's common sense that allows it to slow down. And I think the game's just changing and people are leaving. So is it something that we want? Unironically, some of us probably do want it like this. And they do want it ratcheting up. Yeah, Sheep's giggling in the corner. Sheep's like, I want to ratchet down. Put it to 11. Me, I'll find my fun. Like if I reach a point where hitting legend is too miserable, I just won't do it. I'll just goof off someplace else. Like I'll find something else to do. But I'm a spike, baby, maybe 1 or 2 days a year. So, or a month, excuse me, 1 or 2 days a month. Where you can think shape.
Yeah. For me, a lot of this kind of just feels like the natural evolution of the format, right? What is the deck that y'all know that is my go-to?
Aggro Druid.
Aggro Druid. What does Aggro Druid love to do? High roll out of its mind with Embiggen, maybe 2 of them, play a pirate, Parachute Brigand hopefully pops out of your hand and a 3/3 or 5/5 patches out of your deck, right?
And you're the only one playing it on the ladder. So, like, no one expects to see it.
Offer took his ball and went home. I think Sheep might actually be the last aggro druid. Though there are a couple bots in, like, Diamond 10 that you need to go down and need to spank once or twice just to show him who's boss and who's Poppy, in my opinion.
But like the whole point of aggro druid is kind of where even shaman has gotten and, is doing an even better job at it more consistently than aggro druid is. But it is that high roll. It is that just smork them down as soon as you can, just beat them down in the game by turn 3 or 4. Right. My aggro druid does not play a card over 3 mana. And that 3 mana card is Savage Roar and Voracious Reader, so that we can either refill or in the game on turn 3. Because odds are on turn 3, I'm going to need to do one or the other of those, either win right then or draw so that I can win the next turn. Right?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen a modern like Caverns Below list?
Yes.
Have you seen one of those yet? Have you seen what it tops out at? There's like 2 cards that cost 2 mana. Everything else is 1 or less.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was a trick question, and there was going to be something that was really high mana costed.
No. Yeah, no, not this time. I am. You know what? It's not outside the realm of possibility that I'll do something like that. Like, ha! I've got you. No, it's crazy how low the curve has gotten with that deck to the point where it's just like I play a version my chat gives me. Zevris, I love her. Thank you, Chloe. Sends me Caverns Below that's like she's had and hasn't changed for like 2 expansions, and like the top end is like the Sparkbot kind of spell just to get the quest done, and Swindle. And I've seen Raxius, who is another member of my chat, give me a version that cut Swindle. So now we're down to like, okay, there's 1 card that costs 2, and everything else is 1 or less, and it's a lot of fun to play, but it's like looking at it just like what am I seeing here? Like what the insanity of how low the curves are getting. It's like, whoa, okay, yeah, I can play this and draw and like it's cool. Like I can play everything off passage. That's awesome.
So actually, the quest reward costs 5 mana, 3 if you use prep, but that is more than 2.
Yeah,
That's an appropriate reaction.
not a collectible card.
It is a card that you play from your hand.
The people at home who listen to the podcast can't see the look I'm giving Sheep. I'm very disappointed.
That's a win for Sheep when you're disappointed.
Absolutely. That's exactly the reaction I'm going for. So my point is, though, that this is kind of the natural evolution of the format as we continue to just dump more cards in, especially at rotation, especially, the last expansion and mini set of a rotation of a standard year. The power level tends to be pretty high. The first expansion of after rotation, the power level tends to be a little bit lower, but it's setting the scene for all of the different mechanics and all of the different interplay that we end up getting throughout the rest of that whole standard year. So right now, I think is about the most broken, we're going to get for a while, but also this is the kind of evolution of the format, is that no holds barred. We're trying to either end the game super early or just disrupt our opponents to where it's not the same like trap card like you're talking with Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's they build a board. I'm dismantling the board and building my own with my own broken board based stuff, or I'm just ignoring the board and just going face and just decimating my opponents from nowhere on turn 7 or less. But turn 7 is Holy Wrath turn, right? That's or in the court of Holy Wrath.
Yeah, in that version, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it all to say, I don't know if the answer to is this what people are looking for out of the format is yes or not. It is what I play Wild for. And it is where I always kind of thought Wild was going to continue going. And that's what I signed up for. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. That's intellectually honest.
And I know that's not everyone's jam, but I'm also not like pushing for rank. I'm not, trying to be, number one on the server. That's not what I'm doing in this format. I play this format to goof off, to do these fun broken things, to do these like Timmy turns, sometimes on turn 1 where I am doing the double embiggen, cheap pirate, get 4 pirates on board. One of them's a 5/5, and then every single turn after that, I'm playing like an overstated, undercosted minion with a powerful effect. Like that. That's what I want to do.
When you said this is what you signed up for, I mean, unless you are like checked into a lot of social media and podcasts and stuff, this has been an ongoing topic for years. It was predicted that Wild was just going to be more broken over time, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before. Other podcasts have talked about it. People post on Twitter about it. It's been, if you're checked in online, it's been plainly obvious that this is going to happen and just continue to get worse, and that the devs will balance it if they absolutely need to, whether they're banning a card till it rotates or whatever. They've been a lot better about that.
And they've done a good job of that, but the issue is the ceiling keeps getting pushed higher. And now like the Mine Rogue, like the Mine Rogue combo was addressed because it was breaking the game. If it wasn't breaking the game, would it be addressed? And the answer might be no. And that's not necessarily knocking the devs. Like, it might not rise to the power level of needing to be taken care of. Like that's kind of where we're at the format right now. Is it? The answer is just not automatically yes. A turn 5 infinite damage combo should be addressed. And it's only going to keep getting higher because, especially now, I'm finding at least, and maybe this is just me, they did signal a while back that they were going to start making these cards that are like powerful, end the game, around turn 8 or 9 kind of cards. And we kind of said, yeah, okay. And then they came up with, Sire Denathrius. And we're like, oh, okay, sure. And they printed Astlor, like, yeah, oh, okay, sure. And then they printed the Jailer, right? I think the Jailer was that, or they printed the Jailer. And we're like, okay. And they nerfed the Jailer, but they didn't quite nerf it good. And so it's still kind of like, okay, the Jailer's a thing. We're doing dumb, broken stuff with the Jailer, like infinite damage combos and all sorts of classes, including Paladin. How the hell did you do that? And then there's, it's like, oh man, how'd you come up with that? And then there's, Yogg Saron, new Yogg, Unleashed. That was like just out of pocket, bustado. We did some fun stuff with that, but like that warped the format.
Then
I
they
think
released him.
Reno Lone Ranger warps the format. I see no universe where he doesn't get touched somehow at some point. I'm okay for slowing a format down, but to the point where like you're erasing a board and now you're also time walking me because I can't play fully into my own board and your board is untouched. Like that's and it's an above average hero power. Like it's just
it's something I forget about. I'm like, why can't I play more than one thing? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's also got, not for nothing, it's also got an infinite damage OTK built into it if you play Mage or happen to discover a Koldara Drake. You get the right hero power, and that hero power will come around 8 turns after you've switched to Reno, or you could high roll sooner, or you could low roll later, but you get my drift. It's like if you stall enough in the class with Ice Block and Frost Nova and Solid Alibi and a card that can go infinite and copy itself and keep replaying those cards, and eventually you're going to get Goldara Drake down with the hero power that refreshes 2 mana crystals, and you can just ping them to death.
It feels so rewarding to do that.
It feels so rewarding. I've done it like 3 times on stream. It's awesome. Every single time. But it's just, I don't see a realm where, my point is they keep printing these super powerful cards, and they're going to keep warping the standard format, and long gone should be the meme that like new cards don't affect Wild. It's not true.
Yeah.
It has not been true for years. I went through the cards at my chat. Like this is hands down the most impactful mini set expansion since Dark Moon Fair Races. That is the level of power level it is. Have you guys gone through Dark Moon Fair Races recently and seen the cards that came out of that? Do you guys remember Mana Biscuit?
Yeah.
Like there's some hidden stuff in there. Remember Nitro Boost Poison? Crab Rider? Like there's stuff we still play to Crab Rider rides again. There's still stuff that is like, and you're looking at some stuff and you're like, yo, that's still like we still play Illidari Studies. Like there are some cards in there that have hung around forever. And easily you could make the case that this expansion is just as impactful immediately with some cards that could shine later. So it's like if there's ever discussion for the ratcheting of a power level or a power creep, power creep is healthy. It's good. A card game should do it. Otherwise it's boring and it doesn't change.
They can't just make Raptors and Crux forever.
Right? Can't do it. The beast synergy is going to be too strong. They're going to have to vary it up a little bit. But like this is this one, it felt like they took half a step too far. And like once that happens, I think we have to have these gut check moments of like, okay, is Wild okay? Are we okay with where it's going? Yeah, it's more my point.
And it is definitely a good conversation to have. And I think while I am still signed up for those big explosive turns, be they super early in the game, like my aggro druid example, or turn 8, lock your opponent out of this and next turn, I still think that's what I'm signing up for and what I really like. But it's definitely important to kind of check your pulse and to see whether that is what you want out of the game kind of ongoing. And again, I play all of the formats in Hearthstone, right? You know, I play Battlegrounds, I play, Twist, I play Standard, I play Duels.
Played Arena this week.
now.
It was horrible.
I have not been playing Arena. That is the one that I haven't been playing, but I've heard good things about Arena from my friends who know how to draft.
It was actually okay.
I don't know how to draft.
It was actually
I don't know
okay.
how to draft.
I do it on my phone, so I don't
Arena?
have the. I don't have it. I do it on my mobile, so I'm like doing it from like, all right, this is my gut that I'm following. And I think actually this Arena format's probably pretty easy for a noob to kind of get into because the busted stuff is kind of pretty obvious. So like it's like. Sometimes it's when you're down to class 7, 8, 10, and 11, you're like, which one am I picking? And like, what strategy am I running with it? And that's confusing. But it's okay. I'm sorry. I was stepping over somebody's toes.
No worries. Wild is not the only format that I play, I think is kind of my big takeaway there. And if it was, I think that I might be a little bit more, taken aback by the power level just completely turning up as much as it did this expansion. But whenever I want a lower power format, then I can play Standard, then I can play Twist, then I can play Battlegrounds. You know, there are these other options too that I can go into whenever I'm not feeling that. But whenever I am feeling that and I want to do the like broken explosive things, that's when I come to Wild, and I do that at least every day because it's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, you're getting that variety, right? So it's not just stale for you. There was a time where I played a lot more Hearthstone than I do now. It was you get home from work, and it was when I played mobile. I would just sit on the couch and I'd basically play it till I went to bed, right? While watching TV with my wife or whatever, still interacting, with the fam, but playing it constantly. Then the weekend comes and it's like, okay, now is Legend push. We really got to grind. And I'm spending like my whole weekend playing and stuff. That is when I used to get frustrated with the game. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, there's all these Steam games I have that like I buy on Steam sales that I never play, and I've really I've expanded. So Wild is my main thing, and while you go to Battlegrounds or Twist and Standard, I'll pop over to Standard, but I'm popping over to other video games, and so it's just way less stale for me. So when I am playing it, I'm still having fun. Because I have just another outlet like you do with the other modes. And I think for me, at least, that was a healthy thing to do so that I'm not just mad at the game. You know what I mean?
You're a lot healthier than I am. I basically have one game. And so if
don't forget, I started playing way before you, and I played
that's fair.
A lot back then, and I have tapered off in the recent years. So I still play the game every single day, right? Like whether it's just to complete a quest or to make sure I'm still laddering up. But it was like my life for the longest time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've told the story about all my nerd notes because we didn't have deck trackers and stuff, especially not on phones, right? And so my wife made fun of me constantly for the stack of papers I had on the side of the couch, which is me writing down my deck lists, because obviously you couldn't copy and paste deck lists. And so it was just, and then I'm crossing out this and I'm adding this, and it was just a lot of nerd notes.
I click on that. Hold on. I click on that, and it has all my legend climbs for like the past 2 years. It's insane.
Yeah.
I have to do it manually. Sheep's like, wow, cool app. Do you do you have to do that manually? I'm like, yeah, I have to do it manually. And I get lazy. I type in what the matchup was. And so it'll be Pirate Rogue, and there's not enough characters. So I'm just like P Rogue.
P Rogue.
I said potty.
I don't want to end that on wiser words were never spoken after.
No, we have a thing. We have a thing. Let's do the thing.
Let's do the thing.
Let's do the thing.
Unrelated advice with Electric Sheep City.
All right. What you got?
I thought for a minute she was going to play all three intros because I think we're all going to answer this question. But Neon31 put out a really fun tweet that was basically getting into, okay, what are your 3 favorite decks of all time in Hearthstone? And I was like, ooh, that is a fun, unrelated advice. And I kind of want us all to kind of like just take a minute and think. I've already responded with my 3. I'm interested to know what Sheep's 3 are. And that way we can buy a little bit of time in case Hydra doesn't know what his 3 are yet. So Sheep, what are your 3 that you picked?
Okay, so my 3, first, to the surprise of no one, Aggro Druid. I continue coming back to this deck. I continue to iterate this deck. Like it continues to change. Honestly, like I don't know if I've been thinking during this podcast today, do I need to keep in Voracious Reader or do I like sub that out for Gold Panner? Right? Like there are all these just slight changes that I make, and I'm not like playing composting. So maybe if I'm doing Gold Panner, then I'm playing composting because Voracious Reader draws 3, whereas Gold Panner only draws. So there's Aggro Druid is the one that I keep on coming back to, and I keep on iterating and tightening up and making more kind of tailored to the specific meta that we're in. Mech Paladin is my other favorite. Mech Paladin was the first deck that I took to Legend in Wild. And I did so with a complete homebrew that I made myself. And then not only did I make it there, but I brought it to THL and brought it all the way up to the finals and the alpha season of the Wild Hearthstone tournament league based format. So Mech Paladin is my other old school favorite. And now this one's the one that I'm going to make some people mad about. Because my other favorite deck in Hearthstone history, Wild Hearthstone in particular, is Darkest Hour Warlock. You know how I said I really like those stupid, powerful decks that just like do the fun, flashy thing? Case in point, Darkest Hour Warlock is one of my all-time favorite decks.
That's literally a coin flip, Sheep. It was literally a coin flip. It was coin flip. It
absolutely is.
It was coin flip the deck. If you got it, you were good. If you didn't get it, you died. 51% win rate. Oh my God.
Yes, and it was glorious. I hit Legend with Darkest Hour Warlock. It was so much fun.
At least you didn't say Turtle Mage.
No, of course not.
Right.
Turtle Mage was miserable to play and play against, but you know what was not miserable to play as was Darkest Hour Warlock. Play against? Oh yeah. Play as? Oh, it's time to flip that coin, baby. So SchmoopyDaddy, I know that you said that you've already answered this, so you've got your answers prepped.
I'm locked in, for better, for worse. I think my 3 choices are actually way more cringe than your choices, to use common vernacular. I think you guys are going to hate me way more. My first choice was Oldham Res Priest, standard Res Priest. I had a spicy inclusion from a tournament with Hakar, and I ran Archivist Elysiana. So my Hakar would die, but I'd erase my bloods with Archivist. And so you playing Control Warrior, which was like the hated deck in standard at the time. Yeah. I loved seeing them because I nuked them. They'd just be drawing bloods all the time. And I was okay. Some little bit of behind the scenes, possibly TMI. I was having a bio break while Hydra was talking about. I love plagues. I don't know why I love plagues, but I love plagues. Plagues feel like an opportunity for us to interact on our opponent's turn when we're not supposed to, right? Like it's kind of like what we were talking about with Yu-Gi-Oh, where they have an opportunity to interact with your opponent, or Magic. You have the opportunity to interact with your opponent on their turn. And just based on the mechanics of how Hearthstone is played, that just doesn't happen. It's correspondence chess. You do a thing, I do a thing. You do a thing, I do a thing. And plagues feel like we're doing a thing when we're not supposed to. It gives us a chance to do that. And it's the same with like bombs too. It's like, why do I like bombs? It's like, it's not even that good. But at the same time, it's like, it feels like I'm doing something proactive when I'm not supposed to be. So I loved.
Fair enough.
I brought that deck to Old Ladder D2, and then stopped playing it because of ladder anxiety. I probably could have hit Legend and Standard with it in the old ladder system. If I got all the way to D2, I was basically there. But it was 5 stars a level, and the games were getting kind of nerve-wracking, and it got to the end of the month, and I just never did it. So that was my first favorite. My second favorite was a homebrewed, back when Guardian Animals was a good card, a homebrewed Linecracker Beast Druid. That's right, Linecracker. So like basically you were using the Guardian Animals Illican Summons package to filter out your deck, and then you were drawing your Linecracker pieces, and like people didn't know what the hell I was doing because I was doing like Beast Druid things. So like the Raza Priest isn't bothering to Elucia me. And yes, Elucia was an issue back then. Mm-hmm. And then I pull off my Linecracker combo, and they're like, well, you have 2,000 armor now. And I love hiding behind 2,000 armor. Me and 2,000 armor go way back. Okay, so I love that. Give Elucia back? No, Union, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, that's just me when I usually talked. That's me when I usually talk to my. She did nothing wrong. Union, you're at. Sorry, that's me. That's Shooting Schmoopy. Sorry. The last deck that I miss so much is that you're definitely gonna get mad at me for is unnerfed Ignite Mage. Yes, I know I have a problem. You can never unnerf Sork, because if you unnerf if you unnerf Fork to Sork, I'm gonna play Ignite Mage again. Don't give me Ignite Mage again. Don't do it. Don't do it, because I'm just gonna play Ignite Mage. I'm gonna play the Brain Dead combo deck. I loved playing it. I thought I min-maxed that deck amazingly well. I brought the dumb core Nozdormu. Like I did it as a meme. I started playing Ignite Mage as a meme to get wins for the 7 mana Nozdormu that we all neglect to play on Nozdormu Day. And yes, I see you sinners, rerollers. And I put it in my.
I've never re-rolled it.
I play Nozdormu Day every other month, and I double up because I keep the other one for a whole month.
Beautiful, beautiful. I played it in my deck because I was just like, I'm gonna get wins this way. And then I just kept it in my deck, and I kept it. And the first time I got 11x, I brought a list with it in my list, all the way up to 11x range. It was insane. And my list.
You probably weren't running into anybody else with the.
I ran into dude. If you were running Nozdormu, I died on the spot. The deck was named "Do It, You Won't," because I knew you weren't going to be. I knew you weren't going to be. You're not going to be running Nozdormu. No shot. No shot. And there were a couple times where it got ratted out, and it's just like, yeah. And
thanks.
Now you have a 7 mana 8/8. What are you gonna do? And so that deck was pretty special to me, because that was like, as simple as that deck was, I did feel like there were ways to min max it, and I felt like I hit that, and that's just a special memory for me. So yes, Toxic Solitaire deck. Uninteractive Hostage deck, and frickin' Big Priest and Standard. Those are my three. Oh, I should reevaluate my life. Hydra, what are your three?
Yeah, so I'm trying to decide whether I should go through favorite or just most nostalgic in general. I don't know if those are the two in the same. but I'm gonna start off with post Leeching Poison Kingsbane Rogue aggro Kingsbane. I hated Leeching Poison when people were making massive Jades and they could just face tank them. That meta for me was horrible. But once they nerfed it and it was just an aggro deck, I loved it. Another one of my very first golden decks. It just brings back good memories of our old buddy Trips, who used to play it all the time.
Sure, Trips.
He used to stream it constantly, and I just learned the play pattern from watching his stream. And I just played that a lot, and it was really cool for me. Rogue has always been my favorite class, so I like just to go hard and fast with that class, and that one always just sticks with me. Now I'm gonna go over to Mechathune Warlock, because that was the first time where I decided I was gonna play something that I'm not used to, and I was horrible at it, really, really bad at the deck. But I put in my reps, and I turned a abysmal win rate into a good one. And I don't remember if I hit Legend with it or not, but I sure played the heck out of that deck. And I had a lot of fun before stuffs got nerfed, but it was just different for me. And I wasn't used to it, and learning it was actually the real fun part, because I stuck with it and I didn't want to just give up, right? So I felt accomplished, I guess, with that deck at the end. And then my third one, I'm going to pivot back to Rogue, because this was just an all-time favorite for me. It has not been good in a very long time, but Odd Rogue. I absolutely loved Odd Rogue. Hench Clan Thug as a presence that does damage. So also this is pre like Secret Passage, Cutting Class, that kind of stuff. I love Myra's Unstable Element.
Yeah.
I love that. One of my favorite things to do with the Rogue class was to just rip that. Say you got if this would be more in like the Kingsbane deck than the Odd Rogue, or just a Pirate Rogue deck in general. But if you played that and then you got preps and then you just got face damage, like it was a YOLO, right? Like I got nothing else to do. Let's draw my entire deck. Fingers crossed, do I get damage to go straight to the face? And quite often you do, especially if your hand is completely empty when you're ripping it. And it was just super satisfying to make that person angry. Right? Because you know that they're like, you got me. You got lucky. You got what you needed. So Rogue in general has just been my favorite class. So I'm going to definitely say the Odd Rogue and the Kingsbane Rogue. Fish Rogue doesn't make my list because it's a little more dependent if you're going to have a bigger weapon, and it just it felt not as powerful as the other rogues in the past, but it's sticking power. Like it's still here because it's the best aggro rogue you can play at this point in time. But I remember when it first became a thing, it just didn't seem as powerful to me. So, and don't get me wrong, I still play that. But that's all I got. I don't have my Kingsbane and I don't have my Odd Rogue. So that's my three faves.
Wiser words have never been spoken. And you heard that on
Born to be wild.
Wild.